All right, good morning. Thank you guys for being here. Just want to echo Jessica's comments and thank Patrick and the entire board for opening up your world to us and inviting us to partner with you on this project. As Jessica said, some of us live in the area. We're all SMU graduate students. We spend a ton of time in University Crossing supporting the businesses and establishments in the area. So it was neat to work on a project that was so close to our lived experience as graduate students. So we'll talk about, and again, this project, we called it Reimagining the Matilda Lot, and we'll get into really what that means and how we define it. But just to introduce our team really quickly, my name is Harrison Sostopoulos.
I'm Alina Vega.
I'm Steve Kinder.
I'm Taylor Williams. So when we first started this project off this semester, Patrick and Jessica and Justin posed this kind of broad design challenge to us. And that was, how might we improve the quality of life through reimagining land use for the University Crossing community? So really broad, really vague, but really bold. I think, Patrick, the first time we met with you, you said, I want you guys to dare mighty things. And so hopefully we did that. We'll also stay true to our approach as human-centered designers and the process that we follow. So today we're going to talk quickly. I'll talk a little bit about the context, how we understood this question, the context building that we did to think about this question in this context, in this space in University Crossing in Dallas, so kind of broad global context, but also narrow to the project. Alina will talk about our design and research efforts. So these were the primary kind of qualitative research efforts that we engaged the community on. Steve will talk about how we took those efforts and what we designed and tested through our prototype. And then Tanner will finish us off with the learnings from the prototype and recommendations for you all to consider moving forward. And then Emma, Kennedy, and Dubson will handle facilitate the question and answer session. Everybody participated in building the deck. Okay. So context for the question, the first part of our semester was really spent understanding what is the question, what is quality of life, what is land use, who is the University Crossing community. We started big picture, we did a lot of secondary research. You won't see all the secondary research in the deck, but we can definitely provide that moving forward as well. But we talked about things like this global context to this type of a problem and challenge. And we were excited to see over the last couple of weeks that a lot of our work really has dovetailed nicely to some of the efforts that are going on across the city. I don't know how many of you guys saw this kind of email and quote from Mayor Johnson recently, but really focusing on unused, underused, or vacant city-owned land. So again, hopefully this project will allow you to step into this charge moving forward. Really partner with the city around the Matilda Lot. And then we got specific. So we started calling the space the Matilda Lot. It's not called that, but that's what we kind of own for the context of this project. If you're not familiar with this space, in the southeast corner of the PID boundary, so it's just north of Mockingbird Lane, east of the Matilda Street Bridge, and south of the dark line and the University Crossing Trail. We also heard it talk at, people called it a vacant lot, a green space. So there was a technical language, but also a more kind of casual language around the space, the physical space itself that we wanted to understand. One of the first things we did was we had driven by this space, we lived in and around University Crossing, but we needed to actually step into the physical space itself. So that's what we did on the first day of class. Some of our first impressions was that it was a little bit of a forgotten space. This was kind of evidenced by some trash up against the Matilda Street Bridge and under the underpass, and this dead tree in the center of the lot. So just this feeling of it hadn't been cared for or really thought about. We also had kind of the impression or assumption that it wasn't frequently used. As soon as we got there with a group of 10 people, the person that was throwing the ball with their dog kind of packed up their things and left. So this sense of, I'm using the space, but I don't necessarily want to use it with a large amount of people or other people using the space at the same time. So These were our first impressions, but also assumptions that we kind of wanted to squash as we moved forward through our work. As we talked with some subject matter experts early on, we love this quote from Kristen Nightingale, Executive Director of Better Block. They focus on public spaces and placemaking and have worked in and around spaces like the Matilda Lot. We are creating space for people with people. So again, just reinforcement that our approach as human-centered designers was right. This project was right for that approach. And we really leaned into the with people as we continue to build context. And really that focused around these kind of three main guiding design principles that framed our research efforts. So we wanted to understand who are we designing for and with, who is the University Crossing community. We know the businesses, we know the residences, but what about the individuals that are living, working, and playing in and around this area? Who are those people? And what do they care about? What do they feel? What do they experience? How is the Matilda Lot being currently used? So our impression was it's low use, but we needed to kind of prove that out and see if that was right or wrong. And then how does the community want to use the Matilda Lot in the future? So these questions guided our initial research efforts, and Alina is going to talk about what we learned, what we did, and what we learned.
Thank you, Harrison. So we had these guiding questions, right? So we knew with that we would need to start seeking out some answers to answering these questions. So with that comes the next part of our process, design research. Here is where we gather qualitative data and gather insights to help us get a direction to move forward. So one of the first efforts that we did in this phase of research was observation, going to the space and learning more about that. So we visited the University Crossing area. And one of the first things that we did was go to the University Crossing Trail. We saw that it was highly utilized and very well maintained. And then another thing that we did there was also attend programming. So we went to one of the music on Mockingbird sessions, and then just we also looked at art along the trail. And the goal of us visiting University Crossing was to understand current programming and amenities. And then the second type of design research efforts that we did was expert interviews. We knew that we wanted to start interviewing people that work, play, and live within the area. So we outreached to different groups and kinds of people. And one of the first groups that we reached out to was the University Crossing PID leadership. The goal in outreaching to these individuals was to understand the PID goals and priorities. So here are the list of the individuals that we had an opportunity to talk to. And with these conversations, we found a constant pattern of themes that surfaced. They all are highly invested in this community and very involved, and their priorities include improving safety, developing the University Crossing Trail, and elevating the area as a destination. In addition to talking to the PID leader, we also talked to other kinds of groups such as schools, businesses, residential, and even government. And the goal of this was to interview different groups within the area to learn about their interests and the relationship in specific to the Matilda Lot that we're working with. When we asked them about their impressions of the University Crossing area, it matched and aligned well with our first impression while we were visiting the area. Vibrant, young, eclectic. And then when we were asking them about the Matilda Lot and their relationship, do you know about it? Are you using it? We were expecting a lot more use from these people, but they shared a very helpful insight that there already is amenities available to them in proximity, therefore they're not really going out of their way to visit this specific lot. So with all of these conversations that we had with these different groups of people, a key finding that we found was that business owners, employees, residents, and visitors within the geographic boundary of the PID are not actively using this Matilda Lot. So as I said, they have already amenities nearby, so they're not going to this lot specific. So with that, naturally, we ask ourselves the question, so who is using those Matilda Lot? Who are the users? So we had this great idea to maybe start answering this question, is that we mapped out different green spaces around the geographical, boundary of the PID. And then we also pinpointed the lot to see kind of the relationship, see the distance between the spaces, as well as maybe see if there are residential areas or neighborhoods that are going, if they're close to one of these green spaces, maybe they're going to that green space instead of this lot. Because when we were interviewing, one great insight that we got is that families that are living near the PID, they might not want to cross a busy street such as Mockingbird. So if there already is a park nearby, they're just gonna go to that park instead of the lot in specific. But as we were studying more of this map and like these areas that we pinpointed, we found this neighborhood right here, which is called North Stonewall Terrace, is adjacent to the lot. So we thought, because they are adjacent and this is probably the only green space that is close to them and in proximity to them, they might be the primary users. And something to point out is that they are not within the PID boundaries, but we think this is a great opportunity to kind of, for the PID to provide resources and services outside, to people outside of the PID and also coming to through the PID. So because we found this like hunch that, okay, maybe this neighborhood are the main users of this lot, we then proceeded with neighborhood engagement. We went and visited this neighborhood, and the goal was to learn more about the residents and learn more about the relationship with the Matilda Lot, if there is one. So we were there in the neighborhood over 2 Saturday mornings, several hours. We have knocked on over 100 doors, whether we knocked on them or we left something behind. We were able to gather a good handful of conversations, survey responses, and email conversations. We have different methods of like interacting with these residents and homes. So besides knocking on door and having casual conversation and asking them questions, we also had designed postcards that we designed and printed off. One had an email address that we created that allowed residents to contact us through that email and have email exchanges, as well as another postcard that had a QR code that then led to respondents able to ask very detailed questions and give them an opportunity to just, you know, free response and give any thoughts, concerns, comments that they have. In specific to the email conversations that we found that residents within this lot are they truly care about this lot. They have a relationship, they have a connection, they feel responsible to the lot. But as we also learned is that a lot of them were very hesitant of major development. They thought us coming in, there might be something major going on. So of course, with that, there was a lot of people that were saying leave it alone. But what was interesting is that they would email us first, they would reach out to us first, and then as we asked follow-up questions, they kind of started opening up to us, and eventually they had their own ideas of what they envisioned this lot to be. So from conversations, emails, and survey respondents, we found that the lot is already being used. Most of the people that we interacted with, they said they are using this lot, whether they're going every day or just once a month. This lot is being used by this neighborhood. And we were also able to identify 3 major types of users, so dog owners, families, and walkers. And then from our questions that directed them to like, what are you really wanting this lot? What do you envision this lot to be? We concluded that most residents are interested in low impact improvements. They are not wanting something that will completely change the space or change the integrity of the use of the space, but they are interested in low impact, maintenance, beautification, improvement. So with that, we started getting a direction. We started getting our gears going into what we can actually start designing and putting out into the real world. So we came up with these statements that would help us then proceed into making a design and start building out tangible things. We knew that whatever we should design should respect the neighborhood interest, should maintain the current open and flexible use of the space, so going back to it being low impact, feel inviting and safe, and elevate and enable the community to continue to use the space. And with that, of course, eventually, overall, it should be tested under real conditions. Part of our process is that we do not like recommending anything without testing it out, having it put out into the real world and getting feedback. So with that, I'll now pass it on to Steve so he can talk about our prototype phase and what we actually built out and put out into the real world.
Thank you, Alina. So as Alina said, we are now in a phase where we are ready to develop our prototype, and we are armed with this evidence that we have gathered from our surveys, talking to people, canvassing and whatnot. And the next phase is for us to kind of take a step back, and we decided that we wanted to do an event, some kind of event that would engage the community, and that means that we wanted to start planning this event so we could really consider how we take the feedback and orchestrate what we want to do for it. So if you haven't been to the Expressway Tower, that's where our MADI studio is on the first floor, and we have this awesome room with whiteboards set around it. So we went back there, and over the course of about 2 weeks, we mind mapped and wrote down agendas and came up with all kinds of ideas and things that we could do to activate this plot and get feedback and try a few things. And we really saw this event as unfolding in kind of phases. One, there would be a Saturday, and we would have an event on that Saturday that would last about 3 hours. And then we could activate a few things, try a few elements and see how those work. And then also for 2 weeks following that event, we would allow people to give us feedback because we would leave a few elements in the lot that people could engage with and interact with. So basically, the first thing that came to fruition was that from the lot of feedback that we had gotten was that the lot needed to have some cleanup activities. And what we wanted to do was try to engage the community in a potential way to prototype them to activating that kind of cleanup activity on their own. So we came up with the idea of a community of friends of the Matilda Lot that could orchestrate a regular once a quarter type of event where they would be able to go out and clean the lot and maintain the lots. We also wanted to introduce the residents to the 311 system that the city of Dallas has, because that is a very easy system that they could use. And so we also opened up the app that day and shared that with them and showed them that tree, that really kind of broken down tree, we actually walked through filling out a form on the 311. We're able to get that addressed in the next few weeks. It was removed. But really this idea of the cleanup will enable citizens with ownership around the space to extend further if they are given the opportunity to care for it. The second thing we wanted to prototype was the design co-creation activity, because what we heard from the community was that there was a lot of ideas. Everybody has ideas about potentially what would go into the space. And we wanted to ask the question that can the community create a space that meets their needs and aligns with their values? What type of park and park-like elements might go into this space that are important to the community? And how can we encourage the community to play an active role in the opportunity to create this space? And so what we did with this activity is we put together a map. You can actually see it here on the floor. And this map was of the lot. And then we also designed these little discs. These little discs had 30 different ideas. A lot of these were came from the feedback of things people wanted to see. Some of it was park-like elements, some of it was landscaping, some of it was a mural. It was all kinds of things that kind of came out of some of the surveys. And we encouraged people to come to the lot under the tent and look at these things and experience, like, place them on the map. What's your thought? Why did you do that? What's the narrative? How do you want to engage and experience the park when you come there? The third element that was important was we heard a lot of ideas around benches or other kind of physical things that could exist in the park. And so we wanted to prototype a few items. So we chose benches and planters. And just kind of some subtle ways to give them some physical things that we could leave there for a few weeks that they could engage with and understand if it impacted their quality of life. And also just wondering, as we encourage people to spend time there, how will that also increase the engagement that they would have with the space and wanting to return to this? And the fourth element was this concept of edge activation. One of the things we heard from our surveys and talking with people is that like Harrison alluded to, sometimes people are in the park and when other people come there, they don't really know if they belong there. It's not really that inviting. So we wanted to see if we could come up with some visual and physical elements that would actually kind of draw people to the space, because at that intersection of Matilda and Ravendale, there's some ballers and it's not really that inviting. So we wanted to really try to see if we could enhance the edges of that entrance area to just give a little more well-defined identity and encourage people to come to the site. So down here, we created a crosswalk, which we'll see in a second, and then also we kind of made these things in bollards, and so these go over those wood bollards that are there. So the next thing we needed to do was we needed to promote the event, and kind of like what we did previously, we had already had some information about who was in the neighborhood, so we put together some signage, we put that out on the lot around the neighborhood, and we created an invitation, and we re-walked those streets and put out an invitation on the houses and talked with people. We had the opportunity through the neighborhood association to do a Facebook post as well. They were very open and promoting that post for us. And then also we did personal invitations. We had, I don't know, 50 or 60 people on an email list that we had collected as we went out and canvassed originally. So we sent out an email and invited someone to involve. So next, we have the event on November 19th. That was that very cold Saturday before Thanksgiving. We did that for 3 hours from 10 to 1, and we set up on the lot, and we had over 30 participants come. In fact, even Councilmember Paul Ridley showed up at 10:05 and came over and got some coffee and chatted with me and Harris and walked around the lot and checked out the things. But the range of people we had there was very surprising. We had dog walkers, we had families with babies and carriages, and we had senior citizens who came with aides to come out and sit down and walk. It was a really diverse group of people. And so once we had a chance to get into that, we were starting to get more feedback and more insight. And definitely on the community cleanup, we were able to engage people and talk through kind of the opportunities that they saw about potentially being involved in the cleanup. They were very interested in wanting to clean up, as you can see from the quote, but they also felt like that kind of role was not to just fall on them. There should be something in this city that helps orchestrate really more scheduled maintenance of people going to the lot, maintaining it, taking care of it, things like trash cans and other things. The second thing was the design feedback activity with the maps and the disc. And the interest very far and wide, but really, it really helps people sit down, take some time, consider the options, and realize that this space could be so much more. It could be a very flexible space, and with a number of very simple elements, you could do quite a bit of things. The top interest that people chose was definitely addressing that wall along the Matilda Bridge, potentially planting some native and drought-tolerant plants and flowers, potentially a nature play space, kind of a very friendly natural element that kids can interact with, potentially a walking path that kind of takes them through the lot, and maybe even just some benches. And again, the third thing were the prototypes, were the benches and planters that we put together. Now, these were actually left out there for 2 weeks. So over the course of 2 weeks, we were able to position these near some different areas. And as you can see, we had a QR code on the side that people could scan it and give us a little bit more feedback on. But in general, they were very well received. They were items that people appreciated us putting in the park to help kind of embellish a few little areas where people could come and visit and enjoy the space. And the last element was the edge activation. This is where we took these elements that we created, we put them over the bollards, we went out and we painted on the concrete with some water safe paint and created kind of an inch point and a crosswalk across Matilda Avenue. And this really helped people feel like the space was much more welcoming, approachable, and easy to kind of identify. And so, as I said before, over 2 weeks, we put out some signage around the park and encouraged people to take an ongoing survey. Because we knew like not everybody who used the park was going to come on that Saturday, but we knew if we put these out, people would be encouraged to do that. So these are some signage. elements that were left around the park that we let people, take a visitor survey for 2 weeks following the event. And these are some of the results. We had 16 responses, and 100% of the people who responded were interested in participating in some kind of cleanup effort. The top ranked interests were the Matilda Bridge wall, that being addressed in some way, improving the lighting around the area, and addressing the bridge underpass. The bridge underpass is the element that goes underneath the Matilda Bridge. And over the years, it has been, some interesting things that have gone on there, from homeless to lots of trash to just people going through there and doing things. A majority of the people agreed or felt that from everything, they felt very engaged, welcome, safe, and likely.
We're going to hand back to Tanner.
We're gonna get to the brass back. Kind of what we learned. So to kind of recap, we had this qualitative kind of big prototype that we ended up running, where we had these 4 different stations. We took 2 weeks to leave some stuff out, get some more survey results, and we came up with some really cool design principles. So we got 4 of them. We're going to address them in order. We've got the edges, the interior. We're talking about ongoing maintenance, and then also engaging the community. And so to talk about the first one, the edges, we really want to address the perimeter of the edges and making the space feel more welcoming. So it all goes back to that one survey response that we had, where once those edges were activated, they felt more welcome, right? We can make this actually feel like a space. And here is kind of another quote. So these bollards and crosswalks help make the lot feel more associated with the neighborhood versus just being a random plot of Dallas City property. I think it's really powerful when we actually talk about addressing them, and you'll see our principles applied scale down at the end there. So as we move down the scale here for each of our recommendations, that's going to increase the PID's level of effort to actually implement those. So the top ones are some easy low-end stuff that's going to have a pretty good impact, and the bottom ones are like if we're going to full send this full steam ahead PID activity to address this principle. So we have upgrading the bollards along Matilda Street. So we're not saying put big metal ones there, but we could just use newer wood and kind of update these. You can see on this bottom picture here, there's some cracks and chips, and they just kind of look a little bit worn down. We could clean up the space here. This is behind that Matilda Bridge where there's some trash, some chairs. And then we can also look at the fence line and the tree line along the dart track. We noticed some of the fences were leaning. There's some holes and gaps where it looks like some people have been running across the track and into the lot. And then the last thing, kind of the largest scale thing here, would be to paint a mural on the side of this Matilda Street Bridge. There's a lot of opportunity to do that. There's a huge blank canvas. And as we keep going on from the interior, we're going to move into the interior, where we're talking about this kind of middle green space. So basically anything from the bollards and the berm into the actual space here. We're talking about improvements to the interior of the green space should support the visitor's current flexible use of the space and complement it as a natural space. So we got a lot of survey responses about having this as a big open natural green space. We saw very many uses of this. It wasn't just people coming and walking their dogs. We saw kids come and throw the football around, kids come and kick the soccer ball around. We saw many uses of this space over our time. And this is a really good quote that encapsulates that. I love that we have this open space for us to all use and enjoy. It's our little piece of nature and calm in the middle of an otherwise very large, busy city. So this is very much treated as a sanctuary for the people of North Stonewall Terrace, and they use it a lot. And so when we're considering enhancing the interior and applying some design to that, we want to think about installing low impact improvements such as benches and planters. They love the benches and they love the planters. They were really good additions. And this overall enhances their experience, which I think is the main thing here. We don't want to change their experience. We just want to enhance it, right? So now if you're bringing a dog to the park, instead of standing up, you can bring your dog to the park and sit down while your dog runs, right? So we're improving that kind of flexible experience that they may have. The second thing is adding low maintenance landscaping, such as native trees and grasses. We removed the dead tree while we were there by calling 311. It was a super big deal. If we could replace these things with bigger trees, more natural shrubbery, drought tolerant plants, just adding overall to the beautification of the land, that's going to be a key plus. We saw that a lot in the surveys as well. The third thing is adding a walking path around the perimeter. So this one was based off of the co-design activity. They really like this idea of a path that might kind of run through the trees in the back, almost this kind of meditation, zen-scape kind of path, kind of gravel that they could just kind of get their mind off of the busy city and active in this feeling of sanctuary. And then the fourth thing, which is the highest level of effort, would be consider natural play elements for children. So I think there's maybe a little bit of confusion on what we mean by that, but that's the idea that instead of having monkey bars made of metal, you could have tree stumps that children could hop from tree stump to tree stump. You could have larger trees that might be on the ground and they could climb on those and make them into forts. And just different things that play on the natural landscape of what's kind of already there. And then the third thing is ongoing maintenance. So this is kind of where we talk about a little bit more of the PID's involvement and how they can kind of use this land in the community to keep this plot of land that we just developed, or there's new things being put there to maintain it and looking good. And so we're looking at a thoughtful and comprehensive maintenance plan is required for the long-term success of any improvements made. So this is a really big deal to a lot of people. It would be worse to make changes, but those changes aren't maintained, then leave things as they are. So we think it's very, very important. Through our research, we discovered that this place has to be well maintained and well groomed. And so we came up with 4 recommendations for this as well. So we're talking about inspecting the lot annually for any major issue. So this should be a pretty easy thing. I don't even know if the PID would have as much involvement as just a phone call to maybe a representative of North Stonewall Terrace to go and check out the land, or maybe the city of Dallas could be commissioned to go out there and just see what's up. The second thing, add a service dog waste receptacle. So this one is probably the largest recommendation we have is just these ideas of trash cans and dog receptacles. It's not the idea that it should be a dog park, but rather there's just a place for you to throw things away. So we noticed by our benches here, there was a little bit of collection of whether that be bottles or trash or wrappers. And then people were mentioning if there was also a trash can in addition to that bench, it would have made things a lot easier to throw away, right? So that's kind of our third recommendation, again, is adding and service university crossing trash cans. Those already exist. It's the black ones that are branded with the amazing university crossing logo. We have a picture of some dog receptacles as well that already exist. And then the fourth thing, which would require the most amount of effort, which would be partner with North Stonewall Terrace to organize regular community cleanups. So this would be at distant intervals, maybe once a quarter, biannually, something that would engage the community to get them to come out, similar to what we did and actually participate in cleaning up the land, kind of more on a mass scale and picking up the general tracking area. And the fourth and final thing is engaging the community. So the North Stonewall Terrace neighborhood should be considered as an active community member and stakeholder for future plans of the space. This one is very, very, very important. We had a lot of vocal people come and talk to us, whether that be positive or negative. We had people stopping by the lot just to drive by on our event day and say, hey, we've got work, and so we can't stop by, but here's our 2 cents about this plot of land. So these people really, really want to be a part of the development of the space. And here's a really good quote on that. So the event made me feel like I had some agency into what happens with the public space in our neighborhood. Filling out surveys is one thing, but being able to talk to actual people feels better to me. So they love the idea of us coming out there and hosting this event and getting that direct person-to-person feedback with the activities that we have. And so pretty simple recommendations here, but I can't stress how important they actually are for the continuation of whatever is going to be put into the space. So the first one, maintain an open line of communication with North Stonewall Terrace. That one is as easy as potentially joining the Facebook page and being an active member and kind of just communicating as to what's going on and when those things might happen. And then the second thing is involving them in future conversations around the Matilda Lot. So we're not saying you have to deploy a survey every single time that you're going to touch a blade of grass. But if there's any major developments considering placements of things, or if we're going to go and tear up trees and make huge landscaping changes involving that community and getting further opinions, is going to be a really, really big win and a big deal. And so just to kind of summarize again, 4 principles: addressing the perimeter of the edges would make the space feel more welcoming. The second one, improving the interior of the green space should support the visitor's current flexible use. The third thing, a thoughtful and comprehensive maintenance plan is required for the long-term success of this space. And the fourth thing, the North Stonewall Terrace neighborhood should be considered as a community member. So just to kind of summarize everything up, answering this question, we were tasked at the beginning of the semester. How might we improve the quality of life through reimagining land use for the University Crossing community? And we believe that we answered that with the UCPID might improve the University Crossing community's quality of life
by claiming this space and making small, community-conscious improvements. And I think we really should all focus here on this last quote. Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson, this was actually just in November, so it worked out perfectly in our favor to include this. Dallas should be even more proactive and bold when it comes to parks. This is a city of dreamers and not speculators, and this must be a city of doers and not perpetual planners. So we're going to leave you with that little nugget there. We're really focused on conscious planning here. We hope that this data and feedback is going to be really important to you. We had a really awesome time working on this project. We can't thank you guys again enough for kind of coming together and hearing us out today, even with the technical difficulties, the music and the cheering that was going on. Thanks again for listening. We're going to pass it on for the Q&A.
Made a lot of, talk about the neighborhood that's on the other side of the road. One thing I think everyone has to keep in mind, if our kids make any kind of investment in there, those tax dollars are not coming from the neighborhood, that's coming from the kids. And we have to be able to justify what benefit does the people pay the taxes get for that. So that's why I bring up the emphasis of having some way for people in the pit to be able to access that part. It would be, yeah, I think it's itself, but yeah, where the labor has to be the place to work, they don't.
That is absolutely something that we really kind of wrestled with over the course of the semester. We completely understand that these people don't get into the PID, they're not in the physical boundaries of the PID. And so it was kind of an interesting kind of project because we were completely aware of this. But I think when our design question is improving the quality of life of the university crossing community, I think we're defining the university crossing community as anyone who steps foot into the PID. And so I know that sounds really rainbows and butterflies, and obviously there's a lot more layers to that. But I think one thing that we really heard from Patrick too in our client briefing the first time we were kind of introduced into this project is he really made it a point to say that he wants the university crossing to be known and to be able to be with future partnerships and for it to be a space that is just welcoming and inviting to even people who aren't in the PID and pay into the PID, because a lot of our research also, we saw that the business owners, the managers, a lot of key people within the PID just come there to work and then they leave. And so there's also that aspect of the people who are spending the majority of their time in the PID don't actually live in. And so we feel like there's a bigger picture of who is University Crossing, and it's a transient, it's eclectic, it's a group of really diverse people. And so I think knowing that whoever is entering into the PID is a part of the University Crossing community. And so I think that was a huge kind of, we wrestled with that for a few classes because, money doesn't grow on trees. And so we completely understand kind of that. Does anyone have anything?
Well, I would just say, yes, we completely understand, investing, making this into this full park scale. That's a lot to ask. I do think there's small improvements that would be a great way for the PID to demonstrate that you care about the larger Dallas community, beyond the PID boundaries. And this is on the edge of the PID, and people drive right by the lot onto Matilda Bridge when they enter the PID. And I think there's a way to improve that edge to make it more welcoming, that kind of reflects the PID as a whole.
We also, I'll add one more specific thing. You brought it up with the path on Worcola. One of the things that we didn't talk about as much today, but it was part of our conversation this semester was, we know the PID has invested a lot in the trail, the University Crossing Trail, and amenities along the trail and improving the trail. And we think the Matilda Lot could become down the road an amenity adjacent to the trail we explored some connection points to the trail and didn't not believe that prototyping. But I think our big takeaway was if you can address the Matilda Lot first, then that will help kind of plan for other future developments that may come and kind of really get at those connection points between this space and the rest of the pit as well.
Question specific, there was a photo you all had on one of your slides, and it showed a lot of trash at the bottom of the wall. Is that on the east side of the wall or the north side of the wall?
South side of the wall.
It's.
North side. Here's the dark one. It's where a lot of the.
Right.
Where a lot of the homeless hang out.
Okay, that's what I was thinking it was.
There,
This is the northeast corner of that wall.
so there have been a couple of encampments there previously, that's something we heard from residents. And we're not sure, some of it is a little downhill, so there's trash sort of washing down the hill down there, but, it pretty consistently, there's been a large amount of trash under that path. For the bridge, there's a printer that was slowly taken apart over a couple of times. Even on cleanup day, I went over there with a shovel and bagger and trying to scoop it out, and the two of us did not get off.
Thank you for that.
But also under that Greenville Bridge, there is a fenced off area that you can't pass under. It's like homework.
I'd like to point out, this first of all, this is great, because what this does, it gives us a chance to really think about this going forward, and not in a sort of a theoretical sense, but in a really practical sense. So I think you guys have fulfilled your mission statement, and I want to thank you for that. The other thing is, about our mission is to the MADI group, but also to our board members, is the elephant in the room here is the city of Dallas. Lest we forget, City of Dallas property. The city of Dallas ultimately has responsibility for this property. And I don't want to let them off the hook. Okay, they have a duty and responsibility. And also, if the mayor, if we take the mayor's words to heart, he's saying to the entire city, properties exactly like this need to be reimagined and redeveloped. So now we have some clear steps forward on what we could potentially do with the city in partnership with the city. And the city has a budget that dwarfs our budget in terms of what they can do. And we have been meeting with the city about Glencoe Park. So we know the city has ideas about what they want to do in park space. So the question then becomes, okay, this, let's just say is a park space. You city, we can come to you with ideas, we can come to you with suggestions. We may, to Larry's point, this is a big if, we may, he believe, come to you with some dollars. But you city have to still take responsibility. The city is more than happy to sort of step away and let you take over responsibility. But I don't want to do that. They have a duty of care. But we are also will be a responsible party because you guys have given us the information that we now need. Before it would just be me going and talking to them. Now I can say with clarity, FNU's terrific program has prototyped and developed concepts that are not just theoretical, that are real world solutions.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you brought this to the city, they would help partner. But there was other groups too that would be interested probably in helping sponsor it, like the North Texas Master Naturalist Group, the North Texas Master Gardening Group. They look for outdoor spaces like this to promote and sponsor. So if you get just a couple other groups to partner with, and then take that to the city, like this is our plan. And how we would maintain it. I don't think it has to all come out of our budget.
Right. That's a great point.
I definitely think there's plenty of room for more trees there, because there's a lot of interest in that. I know Dallas has certain budget around that, and I certainly agree that involve kind of the trash that's under the bridge and some of those repairs to the fence line along our fall under the city's domain. To safe, they're easy to miss and
And the other thing, because Larry kind of brought up the simple part, and I know it's getting late, and I don't want to have everybody's time to pressure, but
but one of the simple questions that we'll need to think about as a board is, you know, if we decide to make an investment, to what degree? And how does this benefit the pit? And I think you guys have articulated, the answer, but I also want to drill down, for people like Matt, who they own Premier Place. In a real practical sense, what can they tell people at Premier Place? You know, who are there, working there, about this area? Does us spending money and improvements in this area benefit somebody like Matt? And I think there's and I'm putting Matt on the spot, but also Paul, at SMU for his students. How does this benefit the students at SMU? And again, I think you've articulated the response, but we as a board have to think about that, right? And I think there's a strong argument to be made for that, but I also want all of our board members, and they will, trust me, they'll tell us exactly where their heads are. Think about how do I notify my civic? And so we can have that conversation.
I have a question about, location geography here. Is that Encore's land, I believe it is, between Greenville and Matilda Bridge on the north side of Mockingbird? And just use the water. So water district, do they just fence that off so that they can?
Yeah, on the other side of the bridge, so this is on the east side of the bridge.
West side of the bridge.
The west side of the bridge, yeah, is all fenced, is mostly fenced off, right, on that side? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, I will say, that was sort of our pie in the sky idea, if you could sort of flatten over that easement and make it more of a path on the trail. It's pretty. But, it's all owned by Dow's Water. It's got the Encore owned, basically that firm. Yes.
So hopefully you can say what the water district. can. I don't think that's crazy. Not cheap, but it's not a crazy expense, my guess. Just build a little more trail space. I don't know, let's see what's there.
Mm-hmm.
And when we spoke to Lawrence earlier, his biggest concern really was just access to their equipment in and around the spaces, both on the east side of the Matilda Street Bridge and the west side of the bridge.
Yeah. I don't know, but if I think what we're all saying is if you can make that connection, feel differently about taking investment.
It's pretty phenomenal too, when we pulled up for the big event day, if you're coming from Mockingbird and you turn north onto Matilda, I could see those white bollards right away. And like, all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, that just became a place. And there's some ownership when you like instantly pull up. I brought my 2 young kids with me too. And I was like, boys, do you see it? It's right there. That's where we're going. But there was like more of this like obvious entrance and not just like, wait, what was that thing we just drove by? So I think that they showed a really interesting way of like very carefully activating it and giving it a little ownership without it just being a pass through now. And so then even if it is because it's a part of the PID, showing that there can be some say in that too and what that looks like. So.
Back on the
about, they definitely are concerned with the city, or the anyone coming in and making a big parking lot. Street parking.
Oh, there was an overwhelming response of residents that are concerned with bringing in large increase of foot traffic into that space. They're not opposed to more accessibility in terms of parking and making that feel a little bit safer. But as far as like, putting a parking lot adjacent, they would push back.
Bring up, connect the North Stonewall Terrace.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah,
Existing there, huh? People by,
Mockingbird.
yeah, I don't know, but,
Yeah,
well, they're building a huge.
And I will say, I'm sure you guys know, you talk to a bunch of people in the neighborhood, you get people that say, don't talk to us, leave it alone, don't even look at me. And then you have lots of people that have great ideas, but I would also say that there's a lot of people in that neighborhood that are interested in having easier access to the trail. That came up a lot, completely unprompted. We'd be talking about different ideas of playground equipment, they say, okay, but could we get to the trail?
mm,
I think
How do they get to the trail from there?
Well.
Or to
actually,
still-
The opportunity to like go to Worcola would need to be like, you could do it underneath both bridges and go to Worcola, that would be like a no-brainer.
Steve walked it.
yeah. Also too, for this whole class plan is that the students will deliver this deck, and then there's a one pager that's at your space too, as a kind of an executive summary. And then we open this up to say, we're not going anywhere, so whatever else you guys need from us, we're happy to help and contribute. Most of these guys none of you graduate until May. So they're here for another semester. And happy to help with whatever you guys need moving forward. But we're just so thankful for this opportunity to work on this project, and especially being so close to SMU and how we can contribute and just show this human-centered approach to what can be done in this space, especially activating and engaging in a neighborhood that is outside of the boundary. But how do we account for that and how we move forward and thinking it through? The other thing I forgot to mention is this class is set up in 2 teams, and this was 2 teams, and then we made a really big bold talk about like teamwork and like how to actually work together, even with very different kind of agendas and plan. But to say what's right for the project is that we come together as one big super team, which has never happened in our class before. So it was really great testament to you guys as students in this space to be really flexible and say we've gathered enough research and understanding and context that we can actually do the right thing based on the project and not just what we individually want to have happen. So it was a really great experience for us, and we're just so thankful that we could be here today. So thank you guys so much.